How was your life in regards to faith? How did your family react to your conversion to Islam? What was the major challenge you faced after becoming Muslim?
I'm lost, I'm confused, I'm terrified. I need answers about God. That night, I was feeling weird. I saw this thing. It was very fuzzy, but it was moving at me at a very quick rate. It was kind of invisible, but when you looked through it, everything was wavy like a funhouse mirror. And it literally hit me. No matter what, I wanted to be on Team Allah.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Cleon. Thank you for accepting our invitation. I want to start with, who is Muhammad Cleon?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, with the name of Allah, the most merciful for all of creation and the especially merciful for the believers. Allahumma salli Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. My name is Cleon Cathcart. I was born in California, and I grew up, went to Christian school, and I was basically like an atheist until around 2010 when I discovered that God was real, and alhamdulillah, he was waiting for me to come to my senses, basically.
How was your life in regards to faith?
Well, I grew up in a Christian school and in a Christian family, but at a certain point, I didn't really believe in it anymore.
Why not?
Well, it just didn't make sense. I was able to see that the Trinity didn't match my idea of what God is supposed to be. We say God is one, but, now he's three. And that was a little confusing. And we were making God a human. My idea of God at the time, and even today, is this is a being that is so powerful, he can create the universe. How can I truly comprehend who he is? It didn't make sense that God could one day walk around, and that, God had to create himself in a human so that he could kill himself so that we could all be forgiven. And it was like, well, can't he just forgive us? And when I got to college, I called the synagogue and I asked the rabbi, I said, look, I'm not sure, but I think maybe I'm a Jew because I don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and you guys say he's not. Can you explain to me what you believe? So maybe I can join. And he said, is your mother a Jew? And I said, no, my mom's not a Jew. And he said, well, you can't join then. And I felt God would want you to worship him. And why would he say I couldn't be part of the chosen people if there was a real God? So there must not be a God. And that's kind of where I left that. All these things that seemed to be contradictions for me. Science at the time seemed to have the answers with evolution. Scientists were talking about how we don't need God. And I figured they're smarter than me. So, I just kind of went along with the crowd. So I just really kind of stopped believing in God.
How did your opinion about the existence of God change?
That I was sick in 2010. During that time, I was watching a lot of documentaries. I remember that they had documentaries about physics. At that time, they discovered that there's dark energy and dark matter, and there's a lot more gravity, a lot more matter in the world. We just can't see it. Basically, at that time, they said it was about 30% was what we can see and 70% is what we can't see. And I realized, well, if there's 10 physical dimensions, 30 height, width, length is 30%. So they kind of fit together. And it made sense to me that, well, this dark energy and dark matter must be real. And so then I kind of went from atheist to, well, maybe God does exist. Maybe this is like where heaven and hell and the angels and all this other stuff is.
At that time, did you know anything about Islam?
Probably right after this, or somewhere around that time, I got my first Quran. There was an ad on television, if you want a free Quran, call us and we'll mail it to you. I got the Quran, opened it up, and I saw Jesus and Moses and all of these prophets from the Bible. And since I didn't believe in the Bible, I thought, how can I believe in the Quran, right? These basically the same stuff. Now, I didn't actually read it. I just saw these names in there and said, okay, I don't need to know anymore. And I put it away. I didn't know anything about Islam other than they believed in Jesus and Moses and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon all of them.
So how did your journey to Islam really start?
Later in 2010, I had a very strange series of experiences. For me, I understood that God was real because I did experience it. If God is real and the devil is real, then heaven is real and hell is real. And all I knew is I don't want to go to hell. So now I have to figure out who God is, because I didn't know. God is real, but God is not like a real name. That's just kind of like a description, right? I had read this phrasing from a book by a guy named Pike, who wrote a book called Morals and Dogma. And inside of this book, it says Lucifer is God, but unfortunately Adonai is also God. And I thought, well, I know Lucifer, and I don't want to be Team Lucifer, so maybe Adonai is who I'm trying to reach. That night, I was feeling weird. And I was embarrassed because, we had been atheists in my family for so long. I didn't want my wife at the time to see me praying. So I went outside to pray. And I prayed to Adonai. I just, basically, if you're God, give me a sign. And I saw this thing. It was very fuzzy, but it was moving at me at a very quick rate. It was kind of invisible, but when you looked through it, everything was wavy like a funhouse mirror. But all around the outside, everything was normal. The cars and trees and everything looked normal. And it was physically moving at me very fast. And the word that I had at the time was, oh no, this is a demon. And it literally hit me. I believe they're negative energy because it took all of my energy. I couldn't even think about what happened. I just kind of stumbled and collapsed in bed. And I woke up 12 hours later, kind of like hungover, groggy and sore. And I was like, why do you feel like this? What happened to you? Oh yeah, you saw that demon last night. Well, that must not be the right track, right? Adonai must not be who you're looking for.
So who did you pray to next?
Even though I didn't really believe in the Bible, and I felt like there was, kings and popes and scribes have changed the Bible for their own reasons, for whatever that happens to be. But maybe the Old Testament is right, and maybe Jehovah is God. And so at noon the next day, I prayed to Jehovah to give me a sign. And I got a phone call within seconds. And I have an ID box. It's got a name and a phone number on it. And so I go and I pick up the phone and I say hello. And the person on the other end of the phone said, I got a message last night that somebody at this number was in trouble. And I said, dude, that's a weird thing to say. Who are you? And he said, well, I'm so-and-so, and it matched the name on the box. And I'm a priest. And I thought, wow, man, I just prayed to Jehovah for answers about God, and you called? This is the answer to my prayer. Look, I'm lost, I'm confused, I'm terrified. I see things that people are not supposed to see, and this is too much for me. I think I'm suicidal. I can't take it. I need answers about God. And he said, well, where are you? And I said, well, I'm in Rochester. And he said, I was there last night, but now I'm in this other city about 50 miles away. I said, that's okay. I can be there in a half hour. Just let me ask 5 questions I want to know about God. And he wouldn't let me come. And I said, well, how about tomorrow? And he said, no, busy. And the next day was busy. And finally, it was like 10 days later, he said, okay, we made an appointment. And I hung up happy that finally I'm going to get some answers about God. And then I said, wait a second, let's think about what just happened, right? What was the first thing this guy said? He said that he got a message last night that somebody at this phone number was in trouble, my house. And I thought, well, what? It was a landline, yeah. And I thought, well, what happened? And, oh yeah, you saw this demon that came to your house. And he said he was in Rochester last night, my city, when the demon came. So somehow this guy and that demon must be working together. Because, and I don't care if you're a priest or an imam or a Buddhist monk. When somebody tells you that they're suicidal, you help them. You don't wait 10 days to see if they actually kill themselves. And so I knew there was something that didn't make sense here.
And then what happened? Did you finally pray to Allah?
At that point, the only thing I thought that could be God was Allah. But at the same time, all of that brainwashing from 9/11 and all of that, it's the moon god, subconsciously was still there. And I was afraid to pray to Allah, right? Because I didn't want to make another mistake and pray to something that wasn't the creator of the universe. So I didn't pray. And depression set in. The next day, tears were coming down. Not constantly, but I would start crying. And I thought, this is weird. Why am I crying? And why do I feel depressed? I tried to make the tears stop, but they wouldn't stop. They just came all day long. Friday morning, I got up and my bed was soaked. And I thought, well, what's going on here? And I realized that my bed was soaked because I had cried all night and the tears had made my sheets wet. And the depression was so intense, I don't have words to describe how bad it was. At that moment, we had those little whispers, right? It's like thoughts in your own head. And it said, look, life is not worth living in this condition. And I thought, me, that's right. Life is not worth living in this condition. What can I do? And then that little thought came to me that said, you have to kill yourself. And I thought, you know what, that's right. That'll solve my problem. I can get rid of this depression by killing myself. And so I went through the logistics of how do you kill yourself, and I determined that the best way to do it was take a bunch of drugs so you feel good, then you die out in the middle of a forest where the animals can eat you and dispose of your body, and it's like a win-win. And then it was like that other little thought came to me and it said, what about the moon? And then I got mad. I was like, oh, that's right. God is real. If you kill yourself, you're going to go to hell. I thought, well, if Allah is the devil, as some people want you to believe, and I kill myself, I'm going to go to hell, and I'll meet him in hell. So why not take a chance and pray to him before you kill yourself? Because maybe you're wrong, like you've been wrong about so many other things. I remember it was 10 a.m. Friday morning, and I stood up, tears just pouring out of my eyes, and I said, Allah, I am lost, I'm confused, I see things that people aren't supposed to see, I'm depressed beyond words, and I'm ready to kill myself. And if you're God, you know this. I don't even know why I have to say this out loud. I don't know why you haven't helped me yet, but I'm begging you, if you are God, help. Give me a sign that you're real. Help me. And at that moment, it was like my heart was a balloon, and Allah went, and it literally expanded in my chest, and it filled with a substance that I could only describe as love. And it leaked out of my heart in perfect sine waves. It was very weird and scientific at the same time. And I could feel it go down to my hands, from my heart up to my head, and actually turn around and go back. And it was like these waves of love filled my body. Except in my heart, it was like this star, like this solidness of love had ignited. And it was very brief. That's the first time that I knew that Allah was God. Now, I didn't actually know anything about Islam, but I knew that no matter what, I wanted to be on Team Allah. And so whatever that meant, I'm in.
So what did you do next?
There was a restaurant that some Pakistani people ran, and it had great food, and I seen they were Muslims. I'd been in there before, so that's where I went to learn about Islam. And they connected me with a guy. I was like, I'm in, man. I don't care what it is, I'm in. Allah's God, I know this. Make me a Muslim. What do I get? You need blood? What do we got to do? I'll sign, where do I sign? And he's like, no, it's very simple. It's very simple. You just make a statement with your heart that Allah is God and Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is the messenger of God. And I said, okay, let's do it. And he said, well, there's some things we got to go over. And so he spoke about the 5 pillars and the 6 precepts. And I'm like, I'm in. Okay, I don't even have to think about it. And he said, it's important that you understand the Quran is the actual words of our Creator. And I went, whoa. How do I know that? That's a crazy thought, right? Our Creator gave us His own words, and coming from a Christian background, it just didn't make sense because I never thought the Bible was God's actual words, right? I mean, we're told that these are the inspired words of God, but men's words. This was a very, very strange concept for me, and I'm like, I don't know that I can believe that. And he said, well, you have to be a Muslim. And I said, well, let's convince me. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, let's meet again, because, we've gone through so much today. Let me bring you a little book called A Brief Illustrated Guide to Islam. And in there, it said about scientific signs in the Quran. And for me, it was the development stages of the human embryo and how they're described in the Quran that really match the actual development stages, which we couldn't know without an MRI to confirm all of this for us. And I realized that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he couldn't know that 1400 years ago, that had to be divine knowledge.
So how did you take your Shahada?
After I accept the Quran, I'm like, okay, let's do it now, Shahada time. And my friend, who I still communicate with to this very day, Hassan, wonderful man. He said, let's wait till Friday, right? We'll do it in front of all the people. He said, like church service on Sunday, we do it on Friday. So let's do it and everybody can have the blessings. And I said, no, what if I die tomorrow? I get hit by a bus tomorrow. I want it now. And he said, just wait a couple days. And I said, okay, I trusted him. I said, okay. But like I said earlier, when you get close, Satan starts working really hard. And I was getting all these weird thoughts, right? Crazy. Really crazy thoughts where I thought that if I went to the mosque on Friday, somebody would blow it up. And all these innocent people would die because of me, because I went there. So I didn't go that Friday. And Saturday, my friend called me and he said, okay, I get it. Let's not delay this. Meet me on this park. And so we sat on a park bench and I took my Shahada with him on a park bench. I felt relief because, I had finally was able to be a part of what God wants for us.
How did your family react to your conversion to Islam?
They didn't like it at first. My mom had been on me to go to church. I mean, she'd been very active when I was sick about going to church. When I discovered that God was real and I had accepted Islam, so I called her and I said, hey, you know what, Mom? You're right, God is real. And she was very happy. And she said, oh, that's wonderful. Did you, because we had grew up in the Baptist church. She said, did you find a Baptist church? And I said, no, I wasn't at the Baptist church. And she's like, well, in your area, it's the Lutherans. Was it the Lutheran church? I said, no, I wasn't at the Lutheran church. She said, oh no, it wasn't the Catholics, was it? And I said, no, it wasn't the Catholics. And she just wouldn't let up. I felt embarrassed to tell her because I knew she wouldn't like the answer, but she wouldn't let up. And so she, where did you find God at? And I said, well, Mom, you want to really know where God's at? You got to go to the mosque. And she started to cry and said, oh no, that's not God, and hung up on me. But a couple of years later, I was visiting her in her house, and a family friend that, she had called to talk to my mom, and I had answered the phone. And her name was Ruth. Ruth said, I hear, you're doing well, and your mom is so happy. And I said, are you sure we're talking about the same lady? Because that's not the way that I'm getting, the story. And she said, oh, no, your mom is so happy that you became Muslim and that you've changed your life around. Surprisingly, she was happy that I became Muslim because she recognized how that had changed my life, even though she couldn't admit it to me. So inshallah, make dua for her that she accepts Islam one day.
What was the major challenge you faced after becoming Muslim?
That's a great question. I don't know what major challenges other than sticking with Islam, because, there's all kinds of invitations to leave it, right? And come back to, hey, the girls, you had a lot of fun over there. Let's go, rock and roll, let's go. Concerts are waiting for you. The weed's there. The alcohol's there. It's all waiting for you. Just come on back. Come on back, buddy. We love you, right? But it's wrong. And that's probably the major challenge is sticking to your guns. I accept Islam, and I've got to leave those things behind.
Did you experience anything where you felt a special connection with Allah?
After I became Muslim, I bought a bus ticket where I could go anywhere in America for 2 months. And I traveled around, and I warned people. And sometimes that got me into some trouble, and I realized that to avoid the trouble, I needed to shorten the message down to what was really important. That message was about forgiveness. And I remember being in San Francisco. I was in what they call the Tenderloin, right? This is like where all the prostitutes and drug dealing and all this kind of stuff goes on, because I was like, at that time, I thought, well, these are my people. They're the ones that need the help the most. They're the ones that are hurting the most. And they are. That's how they ended up there. So I was down there. I felt sort of like the crazy man holding the sign, the end is near kind of a thing. I felt a little like that. But I was standing there saying, forgiveness is healing. When you need healing, ask Allah to forgive you. And people would come up and tell me how crazy I was and swear at me and tell me how they didn't want me there. And they were just like, get out of here. And I would stay there and keep doing it. After about 5 or 6 hours, though, it wears you down. And I remember going, this is stupid. What are you doing? You are crazy. They're right. You're standing here talking about God to these people. They don't care about God. Get out of here. And it was at that moment, the first day, I turned around and there was this little old lady standing there, and she's like, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. And it was like, okay, Allah, right? I was ready to walk away, and you put somebody there to encourage me when I needed encouragement. I understand that was you. And the next day I was back doing it again. And the same thing happened. 5 or 6 hours into this, I'm going, that was just an old lady. That wasn't God, right? That was not a sign. Don't be stupid. These people are right. And I'm ready to give up. And then it's an old man. And the day after that, it was like a little boy. 5 days in a row, when I was ready to walk away, somebody would show up and encourage me and tell me that they're glad that I'm talking about God and sharing the importance of forgiveness. I really felt connected at that point because I realized that doesn't happen randomly, right? Not every day in a row. That was a sign. Now, it wasn't a big sign like, the heart expanding, but if you're really paying attention, that was truly a sign.
Did anyone around you become Muslim after you?
Like my grandmother, her mother, I think it was 2012, I went to see her. She wasn't doing well. She was 86 years old, and she was in an old folks home. And my mom took me by to see her when I was visiting. She couldn't speak. She didn't have words. She was in a wheelchair, but she saw me and she started crying. I said, Grandma, why are you crying? She couldn't talk, but she was trying to. And I said, look, I think I know. Let's talk about God for a minute. And I said, here's the thing. My aunt is going to show up. She's going to try and get you to pray to Prophet Jesus, and don't do that because that's blasphemy. That's shirk, right? That's praying to something that's breaking the first commandment. And I told her, I said, look, Prophet Muhammad is a real prophet. And Islam is the correct religion of God on earth today that we're supposed to follow. And every time I would say these things, her tears would get bigger and bigger. And I said, do you want to accept Islam today? And she's nodding her head yes and crying. And I said, okay, just take my hand and squeeze if you agree with what I'm saying. I gave her the Shahada. Inshallah, my grandma will be, a winner on Judgment Day. I was with an organization, actually amazing dawah in the Philippines, and we would visit prisons. So then we would talk about the Quran, and we would talk about what Allah wants from us. And many people took Shahada.
What impressed you the most about our Prophet ﷺ?
His ability to be a mercy for mankind, to be forgiving. His self-described worst day, we all know, was Taif, where the kids, chased him, they threw stones, he was beat up. And he had the option to just collapse the mountains on him. And he's like, nah, I don't want to do that. One day maybe these people will accept. And they did. So his ability for forgiveness and helping people to the right path.
What projects are you doing right now?
I was doing a lot of projects for Dawah. I have a special project in America, the Furqan Project with Furqan Foundation, where they distribute English language Qurans. I think it was about 600,000 Qurans that he had already gotten and distributed. And now I believe he's at 1.6 million. And so my goal is to help him get to 2.6 million or more. Because, that's where I got my first Quran, was from that organization. And they do such good work in getting those Qurans to people that need them or want them. Many Dawah organizations, English-speaking Dawah organizations, use the Furqan Quran.
What would you like to say as your final comments?
God wants you to be successful, and God is waiting for you. God's waiting for all of us, right, to follow Him. As we know, you take one step towards God, and He takes 10 towards you. And you take a few steps and He comes running towards you. So God wants us to seek Him.